All right, everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining me tonight. To make sure you hit that follow button, subscribe, and definitely stay tuned because we got some really awesome guests coming up, including the one tonight. Go over to jeffclarkofficial.com and make sure you check out all the goodness. We're going to have updates to give away there and all that fun stuff. So, also follow on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all that because tonight's guest, you're going to want to follow in on her as well because she's made a huge impact in the veteran community. You're going to really enjoy this chat with her. It's Jenna Carlton, and we'll bring Jenna in right now. Jenna, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Awesome. Awesome. Glad to be back. I'm trying to think of the last time I came on here. It's probably a few years ago, right?
And it's been a little bit.
Yeah.
It's been a
Yeah.
little bit, but I had a bit of an echo there, so I fixed that. But yeah, it's been a while since we've chatted last. Since then, you have exploded on social media. The Millennial Veterans Group has really grown. I think you've had some fantastic success, and I really want to hear about the impact of that and kind of the results and what you've seen because I feel like you've had an impact on the community where it really needed one. How has kind of the Millennial Veterans Group grown over the last 2 years, and kind of what has been your feelings on it?
Yeah, when I think of it, I wonder if things are actually changing in terms of, like more younger veterans wanting to be a part of the veteran community or
Right.
just, veterans in general being more open about being vulnerable and talking about things. Or if maybe like I'm just starting to find the right people, or the people are finding me. So I don't know which one it is, but both are good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Both are great because you got to find community. And I think that's one of the biggest issues we have as veterans when we leave, because we leave a community and we go back into the community and it's not the same universe. There's a lot of differences, there's a lot of change, and I think finding community is really important. I love what you've done with the group. You had the Vet Chats podcast going there for a little while. You got a huge Instagram page now where you're just making connections with everybody left and right. I'm pumped for you. I know that this is kind of a new you're kind of going into a new era of doing things. You want to talk about kind of what are you doing next?
Oh, right. I know that's a big question. Really, I'm just trying to keep things going. The Facebook group has really become more organic. We have found some great mods and other admins that just do great work, and they're so passionate about helping veterans make sure they get the right resources, and also really setting the tone of we aren't we're not here to complain. We're here to lift one another up, and we're here to solve problems, and that's been great. The Instagram, it's
Taking
sometimes
off.
hard to keep it going, but just being consistent and you're not every video is going to go crazy well, but it's really my passion for writing that keeps it going, is being able to just like take things and write about them, and I'm constantly being inspired by other veterans, so that
Really?
there's so much material.
Well, yeah, there is. I mean, because there seems like there's new issues, in the veteran community every day from, the older vets who are in, Vietnam. And I'm sure there's some, correct me if I'm wrong, and there could be some still World War II vets around, but all the way up to now, 2025 veterans, there's people getting out today that, have a need. And it's such a wide gap between those two generations. How do you fix that gap? How do you do that? I think with what you're doing with your group, even though it's called the Millennial Veterans, I don't think it's exclusive to that. There's people in there that I'm sure that are not labeled quote unquote millennials, but um, the voice and the impact and the community and touching base, I think, is really big because without it, we're just alone in a dark closet. Not having
Yep.
anybody to talk to. I find it interesting that writing is something that has kind of inspired you to keep that going because, got like 36,000 followers on there. You're obviously writing content that is working. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes, it really started taking off with simple videos, which was just asking a question. And people loved it. It gets great engagement. And I love it because it gets people thinking. And you can see people going back and forth in the comments, kind of talking to one another, working through things. Of course, there's some assholes in the comments. But besides that, it's a lot of people are very vulnerable and open on there. And I'm really overwhelmed at times with how honest people can be from a simple question. It's really cool to see.
Have you done much on TikTok?
I am not on TikTok.
Okay.
I don't like TikTok personally because it's just so addicting. I
Oh my
couldn't
God.
get a handle on it. I had to
Yeah.
delete it.
I told myself I'm gonna download it and I'm gonna use it just for business. I'm just gonna repost podcast clips, the occasional funny news story just to keep it lighthearted, and I'm gonna keep it at that. And I just found myself scrolling so much that I'm like, oh my God, I had to put the screen time on. Even then, I'm not doing a very good job at it.
It's hard.
It's
It's
going away in a
evil.
week, so it's not that big a deal. But I mean, uh,
Right? So do you think it's going to be banned?
well, I was looking at something today, and uh, the way I saw it was that it's banned on the 19th of January. President Trump takes over on the 20th of January. So unless President Biden does something between now and Sunday to extend it, it technically has to shut off. And I think the CEO of TikTok, or one of the big chief operating guys of TikTok, was kind of testifying, and they were saying, what happens if this date comes? What happens to TikTok? And he said, I mean, we legally have to shut down. It can't be sold on the app stores. You can't download it. You can't access it. The site has to go black. We have to shut down, and that means jobs. That means creators who are earning a living. Because there's some people out there that are doing really, really well on the platform, reselling stuff. He's like, all of that comes to a halt. It stops. So
Hmm.
unless there's some kind of extension, and somebody acts, and then that's when they came into the commentators on there were like, well, President Biden's the president through the 19th. The morning of the 20th, Donald Trump gets sworn in. He can't do anything. The morning of the 20th is when it goes dark. There's nothing that he can do. So
Hmm.
that's how I understand it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But it kind of sounds like to me that it has to shut down unless the Supreme Court steps in and grants some kind of extension, or Congress grants some kind of extension. They want to study it further. It's going to shut down. I'm surprised Instagram hasn't, Facebook and Meta and all them have not kind of capitalized on that and tried to recruit people to come over. I don't know if maybe they were just kind of underestimating it, thinking, it's not really going to happen or what, but it sure sounds like it.
Yeah, and I don't know if Instagram or Facebook is really a good. I mean, it's kind of the only alternative, but it, they're so different in comparison, especially with, like you mentioned, like the online businesses and just being able to promote your product so easily with TikTok Shop.
Oh, yeah.
Like I kind of wish I could hack it and do it because I know I'm missing out on a lot of audience and younger people that would like the millennial veterans, but yeah, I just can't.
And it's another platform. It's another platform to keep up with. And it's just, there's already enough social media out there. And then to try to jump on all of that too is just, it's a labor of love. I don't know how you juggle all the social media. I mean, obviously you have admins in the Millennial Veterans group. I'm sure that helps a lot, but just trying to keep
Yes,
up
they
with it
really do.
myself is a pain.
Yeah, I can't imagine, especially in the community setting. That was hard at first, you know, but a lot of it is automatic. It detects a lot of things, and it detects a lot of things that are not harmful and tries to kick them off. So sometimes a lot of the work is just correcting the bot from what it's doing.
Yeah, I saw Mark Zuckerberg was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and I was listening to it a little bit of it today, and he was talking about the censorship, and I was really, really interested in what he was saying when it came to the administration of of the algorithms, because he was saying, you know, we were blocking stuff on Facebook that was being talked about on the floor of the Senate and the floor of the House in Congress. You could watch it live on TV. It was being replayed on TV and the internet and all that. But Facebook was blocking that same kind of content. And he was saying this because they had their parameters set way too high, where it was blocking like 97% of certain subjects. And he said, but then it was blocking good content that was open for good discussion. You know, and he said, so what do we do? Do we drop it down to like 80%, and then some of the good content sneaks through? Some of the bad content probably sneaks through. Just the way he was explaining it, it made it sound like it's, hey guys, it's not so simple. I'm not taking his side,
Right.
but where you're trying to fact check, you're trying to make sure that the bad stuff doesn't sneak through the algorithms and all that. You know, how do you manage all this traffic? And then he was just talking about how big the internet is. He's like, there's so much traffic on the internet. How do you expect live people to be sitting there and looking through it every day? It's impossible. It was just like, wow, that made a lot of sense. And it really kind of put it in a little bit more perspective. Again, I'm not defending him or favoring Facebook or anything like that, but
Right.
it made sense from a technology perspective to what he was saying. And I was like, okay. I think I understand that a little bit better now, because, you know, I've seen people, even friends of mine, say, I got a post banned. You know, I got one of my posts taken down. And then I can go, well, I can go on Instagram right now and find all kinds of stuff that should be banned that is not.
Yes.
You know, it's like, you know, I wanted Zuckerberg to do something about the bots, because I get messages from bots all the time. And I'm like, where is this coming from?
Yeah, that's the frustrating part. And I think that's so true. Like the average user doesn't understand that. I mean, I don't think anyone, even people who work on algorithms, understand them truly.
No.
And so for us to interact with them, it's going to be chaos until they learn more, and they will. And
Oh, yeah.
and it is a good thing, because like you said, there used to be people who would have to filter. And I remember listening to a podcast or something, and it was talking about how they were the they were the people it would go through, like the bad content. So they were seeing like terrible videos, like deheading videos. They were seeing like, you know, just assaults and horrible things. And that was their job, to decide if it was good or bad. And, you know, now we have machines that can do that, which is great. But, you know, there's still going to be errors.
Well, there's a cause and effect, and there's a consequence for everything. You know, if we don't have algorithms do it, you know, then somebody's got to sit there and watch it. And then you got to employ a whole lot of people who probably watched a lot of bad stuff, like you mentioned. Well, what does that do to their mental health? What does that do to them every day?
Yeah.
You know, there's already a discussion in society about what police officers have to see every single day, you know, and there's a misunderstanding there. You know, they see some pretty bad stuff every day, especially bigger inner cities, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, you know, where they see some really bad stuff, and then they're supposed to just go home. Well, same concept. If you're sitting there watching bad stuff on the internet all day, what is that going to do to your mental health? What is that going to do to your mindset? It's gonna rot it. You know, it's gonna corrupt it, and you're gonna. That's not good for any human being. I don't care what anybody says. So that's kind of a dangerous line to toe, and you know, the very thing we created in the internet and social media is the very thing that's going to cause us the most problems. And I think it is.
It is. It really is. It really is. And even like my admins and my moderators, you know, we're always telling each other, like, take a break, because we get some heavy posts now and then, you know, veterans reaching out that call for help, you know, and you know, then they just go silent, and you're wondering, you know, where are they? Like, what happened? And that's happened multiple times in the group. So yeah, it's hard.
That's tough. And it's kind of scary too, because, you know, you want to help everybody, but you can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped. Yeah. But at the same time, the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And I think that's the biggest thing about the transition is there's services and stuff out there. You can go to them, but if you don't act on them, they do nothing for you. You know, and we can do the buddy check all day long. Check in on folks and say, hey man, how you doing? Did you fill out this and that? Did you do this and that? And if the answer is no, I can't make you do it. You know, I can highly encourage you. I can get on you. I can call you all the time. I can't make you do it. And I think that's difficult. That's really difficult for us to manage.
Yeah. And I think starting out, that was really an issue with me. I felt so much guilt not being able to help people or like feeling like I should be doing more.
Hmm.
But yeah, honestly, that's what's helped me so much is you can't help people that don't want to be helped. And there's nothing I can do. It's out of my control.
Yeah. How long have you been out of the Navy now?
I've been out for 8 years. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I've been out since 2017. So yeah, about
Oh
eight.
yeah, same as me.
It'll be 8 years in June. So yeah, a
Yes.
lot has changed. I still work for the DoD. A lot has changed since then. To include something I never thought I'd see happen, is that junior enlisted pay bump, which I think is incredible. Have you heard about that?
No, what's that?
Oh, so they passed it in the new NDAA. So basically, your E1 through E4, and I might not have all the facts correct, so nobody kill me in the comments, but basically, your junior enlisted, your younger enlisted, I think it's E1 through E4, is getting like a 14% pay bump. Like huge, huge pay
That's
bump. It's supposed to bring them up to where they're not living at that lower level where they're struggling, they're on food stamps and things like that. Um,
yeah,
it's
really.
huge. It's huge. It's a really big pay bump. It's something that we've been discussing on base lately, as far as bringing services to those, those airmen, and saying, "Hey, you're getting a big pump, a big bump. 14% is a lot of money. What are you doing to manage it, and how are you doing that? You're gonna go blow it on Xbox games and a brand new Dodge Charger? We need to talk time out." You know what I mean? So I didn't know you didn't know about that. Yeah, it's a really big deal.
Yeah, that's huge. And I mean, much needed because I remember struggling even as like E3, living
Mm-hmm.
in the barracks and having to eat at the chow hall because I didn't get money for food. And a lot of people struggled because they did not know how to manage money.
Well, and I think my first paycheck was like $600, and I was
Yeah.
living in base housing. And thank God back then, base housing where I was at was, all your utilities were paid for. So you just gave over your BAH for the month and then you were good. But if I had to do anything else, we would have been in a lot of trouble. A lot
Yeah.
of trouble, because $600 a paycheck twice a month is not a lot of money.
No. Do you know what was the push for that?
I think it was just a group of congressmen, senators, that just felt like, if we're going to do $15 minimum wage at the federal level, but we're not going to change any of those, so we're basically saying people need to earn a living wage. So everybody at the federal level needs to make a minimum of $15 an hour. They made that a federal law. But then what do they do to the junior enlisted tier? Do they make $15 an hour? So I think there's just a big push to say, if that's the standard, we're going to say people need to make a decent living. Minimum wage needs to go all the way up to $15. We need to look at our own pay wages and say, hey, and I think it just started with the junior enlisted, and they said, well, if you're mad that people at McDonald's aren't making $15 an hour and they're living on food stamps, what about the people who serve in uniform? Are you mad about that?
Right.
And I think that just kind of came a big push to do that. And I think a lot of people, it didn't look like it was going to pass. It kind of looked like it was being scrutinized pretty heavily, and it's a big bill to pay. 14%
Mm-hmm.
for every
It is.
junior enlisted is a big bill to pay. But they found it and they figured out how to do it, and it got approved, because we're doing counselings on base now for the junior enlisted to make sure that they kind of have a plan as to what to do with that money, and that it's not just funny money.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. How about like, entry level government jobs? They are like I go on USA Jobs, even in our group we talk about it and just the pay. I don't think I could have when I started, I couldn't have lived alone. I luckily like my husband was, stable in his career, but I couldn't have lived alone off that when I started with the government.
Mm, yeah.
I
No,
wonder.
I definitely think it's something that they need to look at, the same thing, the kind of the lower tiers of the GS pay schedule and the other pay schedules, and look at that and say, you know, how easy is that to live on? Because it's not. Once you start taking all the benefits and stuff out of the paycheck, those those paychecks go away really fast, and it dwindles
Mhm.
really quickly. And it looks great on paper. When you look at the GS pay scale and you look at what some of these people make, you go, wow, that's a really good number. All the things that get taken out of it, really. What you actually have to spend is a different story.
Yeah.
Like, even for me, I have a really good job. And if it wasn't for my wife working, I would have to have my VA disability just to pay our bills.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything that comes out of it is just, it's shocking. And you're like, wait, where'd all my money
It is. Yep. Yeah, I can relate to that.
What do you think about these California wildfires?
I was actually just praying with my daughters about it because, there's not much you can do. It's force of nature, act of God.
It's bad. It's bad, and I saw something a while back where they were saying, some of these fire experts were saying, like, listen, the right fire in California, in Los Angeles specifically, in the right wind, it would just ignite and it would just push east and it would just burn everything. And there'd be nothing they could do to stop it. And, what do you do when you know that is a possibility of something like that happening, where you could just get absolutely wiped away?
It's
scary.
It's scary. Literally hell on earth.
Well, and some of the things that the local government has done there seem a little questionable. I think they were really, really unprepared. I mean, how do you prepare for a natural disaster? You kind of don't, but there are some things you can do, I'm sure. I mean, but people are losing their entire homes, and celebrities are losing their homes too. And while I don't feel too bad for celebrities, I don't want anybody to lose their home. I mean, that's a pretty crazy thing to have to deal with. I mean, the aftermath of the fires is what's going to be the problem, because what do you do when you go to rebuild in a place like that? Well, you have multi-million-dollar homes. Who are the contractors going to go to first?
Right. Yeah. It's definitely supply and demand.
Yeah.
Nightmare.
Where's the money at? The money's in the multi-million-dollar homes.
Yeah.
So the average folks who, are living paycheck to paycheck and are trying to get their insurance claim and get their house rebuilt or whatever are going to be, towards the bottom of the list, because, where's the money in that? And that's what's sad, is the people who really need help.
I heard a lot of the insurance companies, they don't cover fire damage because there's no money in it. So, it's horrible.
That's bad. That is bad. I feel for people about that, because I don't know what I would do. I know we have earthquake insurance here in Oklahoma, which sounds silly, but back when they were doing all the drilling and all the fracking, we would have earthquakes way more often than you would think we would. And I got earthquake insurance just to protect ourselves in case something happened where it rattled the house good enough to kind of mess with the foundation. But I can't imagine having the whole house burned down, and then what do? You lost everything.
Yeah. I can't even picture it. Just hoping they stop soon, or rain, or I don't even know if that would help, but something
big. We need a hurricane to form out there in the ocean, and then just kind of die down as it gets close to the coast.
Right.
Just drop,
not damage.
Just drop rain. That's what we need to happen, because California is getting crushed, and I can't imagine what the veterans out there are doing either with all this going on. We already have a homeless problem. I can't imagine, what the situation is, that they're in with all these wildfires. It's not a good deal. You hate to see it.
Yeah, it's a huge veteran population in California. Lots of big bases out there.
So what's going on in the Millennial Veterans group right now? What are some of the hot issues that you've kind of seen lately that people are talking about?
Oh, I would say, actually someone just reached out, just the feeling of not, how do you get back to yourself, even though like you don't know what that is, sort of
Mm.
thing? How can you feel enjoy life again? You know, you we left the military to be for a reason, to or sometimes it wasn't our choice, but you picture your life being better because you got out and you served your country, and then you get out and you just feel like I don't know what to do. There's so many options. That's overwhelming. Maybe I have mental health problems. How do I fix this? And then you just totally lose your community. All the people you served with, you lose your doctors, dentists, everything. So how do you deal with that? Looks different for everyone,
Hmm.
but it is overwhelming.
What are you seeing as the solution for that? How are people reaching out and kind of helping that connect that gap and fill those holes?
I think the biggest thing, and it's so simple, is just reaching out, because some people reach out anonymously, or some people, they're out there, saying, "Hey, this is my story. I went through this," and just saying like, "Hey, I did that too," or I tried this, it didn't work, or maybe try this. Nothing like this is what you have to do. It's more just suggestions or just support of being like, it's normal to feel like that, and and that's okay. You're going to get through it. Sometimes it just takes time. And that's the last thing you want to hear. But there's no magic quick fix. It is a lot of just keep navigating it till you find out what works.
Yeah, and I think you got to kind of swallow your pride a little bit. And I think
Yes.
you have to, feels like cheating, but you have to look at what other people have done before you and what has worked, and you have to copy that formula. You know, um, again, it kind of feels like cheating, like you're kind of just taking their content or whatever and repurposing it. But, when I got out, I thought I knew how to do my resume and I did it and I wasn't getting called back. And I asked a buddy of mine who's a veteran, I said, dude, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I can't get a call back for a job. I'm perfectly qualified. I'm missing out. He said, let me see your resume. He looked at my resume and said, I know exactly what's wrong. Here's my resume. I want you to take my resume. I want you to copy and paste. I want you to put all your stuff in it. And I want you to go to this website and I want you to use all these keywords. And he's like, I want you to do all these things and then go apply for jobs. And sure enough, first time I did an application, I got an interview. I didn't get the job, but it was progress. And it felt like cheating. But then I
Mm-hmm.
realized real quickly, if you're not willing to take advice and take those little tidbits and those shortcuts and look at what other people do, and kind of copy that formula, you're going to fall on your face, and it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be really difficult to be successful. So I think you know you gotta swallow your pride and you really gotta jump in there, because it is a hard time. And just got a comment there on YouTube. The transition is such a hard time for so many. Agreed. It absolutely is a hard time to do. You know,
Yes.
it's
Oh,
very
Viva Las
difficult.
Vargas.
Yeah.
Hey.
Thanks, brother, for putting that comment on there. But it's absolutely true.
He has a huge TikTok, by the way. We were just talking about TikTok.
Does he really?
Yes. Yeah, you got to look him up.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to help support. I've been dropping tips in the group lately.
Yes, you have. Great stuff.
That's good. Yeah, you know
Really
what? I
great
think
stuff.
that's the best way of doing things is we got to drop tips and little tidbits and say, hey, here's what's worked for me. Here's what I've seen other people do, because um, you're gonna discover some stuff on your own, but if you're just sitting there quiet in your house scrolling on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, you're not gonna find all solutions.
No, you're not. And you know what my motto this year is the only way forward is to push yourself out of the way, because
I like
we
that.
just get in our own way so much. Even with me posting, and maybe other people feel this too, like even commenting on a post, sometimes I will just overthink it and get in my own way
Mm.
instead of just like typing it. Like, you never know who it's going to help. You never know who's reading it. So there's someone out there that needs to hear it.
Yeah, I think in the comments, if I comment back on something, I try to do it with purpose. I don't try to entertain any of the trolls or anything like that.
Right.
And I don't give any value to, the hater comments, and I get them, especially when you talk about certain military affairs, and get just a tad bit political on certain issues. I've had some comments that I just deleted them and said, you know what, you're just, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. But some people just feel the need to say whatever they want to, whenever they want to. And it's like, listen,
Yeah,
you're adding no value to this at all. Why are you wasting everybody's time?
it is. And it's easier to be like that when you're anonymous. But I mean, even on Facebook, some people don't care. They'll have
Yeah.
their picture with their whole family and their job, and they're just still running their mouth.
Right, and say some wild stuff too.
Yeah.
Like, say some wild stuff. I'm like, you're gonna say that with a picture of you and your mother and on your Facebook profile? Like,
I've
what is
had people
wrong?
say crazy things on LinkedIn, and people that have held really prestigious positions in the Air Force high up, and I couldn't believe the way they were talking about junior enlisted women. It was just mind blowing. I had to screenshot them all.
Wow. We got Adrian dropped another comment. I went from homeless to doctoral candidate and successful cancer research career, and they learned a lot on the journey. I'm trying to turn around
Oh,
and lend a hand to other vets. It's been a crazy journey. Man, Adrian, props to you, brother, because that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy to get to go through all that,
yes.
and especially being from homeless to doctoral candidate. I mean, what a drive. Because I've done some doctoral classes too, and man, those
That's
are,
intense.
it's a
I
big
can
ask.
imagine.
It's a big ask, and to go from homeless to what you're doing now.
Yeah,
Props
and
to you, my friend.
it's much needed. We need more veterans in, doctors positions. What's your doctoral for? Did he say?
He didn't say.
Yeah, but just in those positions, maybe in charge of the research or, taking care of patients, whatever it is, it's so needed because I feel like we're just so misunderstood at that level.
Well, and I think at all executive kind of levels, if you look at the amount of veteran-owned companies that are out there, and you really did your research and dug really hard, there's tons of them. I mean, there's just absolutely tons of veteran owned businesses across the globe. And these are folks that were at one point in time in the middle of a bunker in Afghanistan getting shot at. And then they came home and they put all their skills, their courage, and their bravery to the test and really, really crushed it. And now they got successful businesses. They're running big coffee companies. They're running other businesses. They're C-suite executives. It can be done. Maybe we don't advertise it like we maybe could or should to motivate other people, but there are so many people out there that are doing awesome things. But you don't see a lot of veterans with doctorates, and I don't know if that's just because they're hiding out, or if again, like you said, we just don't have enough of them. But um, I think it's a little difficult to see the value in that much of an education unless you have a certain thing you want to do with it, research or teach or something like that.
Right.
I know for me that was my debate. Do I keep going with this? Am I going to use it? Is it worth my time? Is kind of a
Yeah.
question.
And it's a lot of stress too, and a lot of us are, juggling families and,
Hmm.
trying to maintain income as well as pursuing our passion projects.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Speaking of passion projects, you mentioned something before we jumped on air about writing, and then you mentioned it again when it came to your content creation, and that writing is something that really motivates you. First of all, we haven't really chatted since you released the veteran workbook, so let me tell you congratulations. I think that was an awesome endeavor, and I really enjoyed the workbook for sure.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm looking to, well, okay, so I got like two projects going on, but I'm looking to republish it, maybe redo it a little differently, maybe, really find a better way to market it because I just did it through Amazon, a cheap way. I just wanted it out there, and we've gotten, over probably like 1,000 copies out there, which is great.
That's awesome.
Um, but I feel like I could make a better product with it and just more user friendly, easier to journal with. So that's one thing I'm working on, and then the second thing is I want to write a novel. My goal this year is to write a novel, something thought that I couldn't do. I probably read like 4 to 5 a month. And, I just admire the stories. I could see how fun it is to create characters. I know
Yeah.
you've done that
Hmm.
with your writings. And I just want to give a crack at it. And
That's
I've already
awesome.
written a few chapters. It's been so fun. So I kind of wanted to pick your brain on methodology. How do you do it? What's your strategy for keeping track of characters and everything?
So I use a program called Scrivener, and I like Scrivener because I'm a very organized person. So in Scrivener, you can you can you can make folders that for each chapter, and then it has a character database where you can create characters, and then you can push post notes into certain chapters, and it's a really cool tool. I think it's like 40 or $50 one time purchase. Um,
Okay.
it's called Scrivener, so check it out. That's what I use. I know other people who use Microsoft Word and they can keep it all up here and keep it organized. I'm not that smart. I got to have somebody do the work for me because I have a hard time getting the words out on the paper, let alone staying organized. So I use Scrivener because then it's that continuity for me that really helps. So then I could focus on story, and I can always go back and look if I forgot something. Um, and then
Yeah.
I read in the genre that I want to write in,
Mm.
so that I understand one what the genre is asking for right now today, because publishing changes so much, and if you sign a book deal
Right.
today you might not put your book out for another 18 months. You've got to know what's hitting right now because that's what publishers are looking for, and you got to know what the market is asking for. That's a big deal too. There's been plenty of books in history that have released and fallen flat on their face.
Yeah.
Great books, wrong timing. So it's kind of one of those, do your research, read in the genre that you want to write in, and then study. So I used to read, I love reading Tom Clancy, but when I really got into novel writing, I went back and said, how did he transition from paragraph to paragraph? How did he transition from chapter to chapter? Um,
Right.
and I looked at how he kind of segued or hinted at a plot or a key point that was going to happen later. And I think you have to just kind of draw it out in whatever terms works for you, and then you have to just keep cracking at it and know that you're never going to be satisfied. It's never going to feel like a finished product because you're always going to want to work on it. But it's just kind of how you got to go about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Timing is everything. And I mean, I don't know if I'll ever go anywhere with it. I'd love to because it just sparks almost like a childlike fun with me. Like I haven't even been listening to music or podcasts when I'm driving. I am just zoned out, like brainstorming different scenarios, different plots, and it's just so much fun. It,
It
it
is fun.
really is.
It is fun.
And I'm doing it with like pencil and paper, old school, and
Yeah.
just yeah, I love it.
Who do you like to read?
I read a lot of like just random books from the library, just kind of like those cheesy novels. But like my constant is historical fiction, and who I really think does it best is Ken Follett. I've read so many of his books, and I think that's why I was intimidated because his aren't novels; they're like 1,000 page, and he does so much research through
Yeah.
like medieval times all the way up to like World War II. He's having characters in different parts of the world, so it requires so much background knowledge, and yeah, that's intimidating.
Yeah. The research definitely is, especially in like military thriller, spy thriller fiction, because people expect you to get all the details perfectly correct.
Yes.
Especially if you're a veteran writing in that space, they think that readers think you know it all. Like you should
Mm-hmm.
know everything already. So
Yep.
if you get something wrong, even the smallest detail, they will absolutely destroy you. Like I've had author friends who said, I mistakenly said he flipped the safety off on a Glock. Well, Glocks don't have safeties; they have a finger safety. got roasted for it. Emails upon emails saying that would never
I believe it.
happen. That's not correct. It's like there's a pressure involved with doing that kind of stuff. But I think it's cool that you like that. Are you reading in that genre right now as well as writing in it, or are you writing something different?
So I guess like the last few books I've read were about authors themselves. Like, their job was writing, and then it talks about like their love life. It's been pretty lighthearted, but then it just kind of got me inspired on how they work. I got to see like, taking time from their day, or, having to hit so many words, and that I don't know, it just got me curious. Yes.
That's interesting. I think that's cool that you're trying to write. I think it's something that I've talked about with other veterans. Like, have you ever thought about writing? You know,
Yeah.
and it was like, well, I don't know if it's something I'd ever want to publish. I'm like, well, who said anything about publishing?
Right.
Just write it. Just write something
Yeah,
for your own,
it
your own
is.
self. We don't all have to become a professional or an expert in everything. Maybe you just need to do it for your own mental health, your own good.
It
Just
is because writing is actually deconstructing yourself. You're taking what's up here and you're breaking it down to being able to see it outside. So you're breaking down your own thoughts. It's such a therapeutic experience, no matter what you're writing about. And veterans could use that, which is why I made the veteran workbook to try to get veterans to write.
yeah. What do you want to do with like the volume two? Do you have any ideas for the revisions that you want to do that you want to share?
Yes, I want to get a little more intimate with the questions, which I was hesitant about because, when I ask them on my Instagram, it's in a group setting where people can kind of support one another. If there's that cry for help, someone might see it. But when you're doing it alone, asking that, like, what's your biggest regret about service, or you just never know what's going to hit heavy from one veteran to another. And not being able to support them through that question. I'm not a therapist. I don't have any mental health background. So I'm going to have to like figure out where's the line there, or what's in the best interest of those writing it.
Yeah, because you want to help, but you don't, and you want to get deep, but you don't want to trigger anybody to the point where maybe they close the book and they go
Yes.
back into that dark corner. But you still want to try to get the nitty gritty,
Yeah,
the real evils out, because I think that's where the real work is done.
it
Um,
is.
I've met so many fellow veterans that I was like, you're just gonna have to call it ugly sometimes, man. You're gonna have to just understand that failure is a part of the process, and that you're gonna feel alone. But it's up to you on how long that lasts.
Mm-hmm.
My phone is always on. I've given out my phone number plenty of times and said my phone is always on. You might have to call it 3 or 4 times in the middle of the night, but keep calling until I answer, because I don't give my phone number out if I don't mean it. Because I don't want people calling me. I don't want to talk to random people. So if I give you my phone number, it's legit. It's for real. I want
Mm-hmm.
you to call me. Because I was there at one point too. Like, I thought I knew what was going on when I separated and everything was good to go. And um, that was the transition wasn't really the problem. I got a job and I got started once I got my resume locked down, and I had a couple of months wiggle room. It was years later when I realized I wasn't dealing with my injuries well. It was causing anxiety and stress that I could not see. It was those hidden things that if I would have had more people around me who would have talked to me honestly, um, I could have avoided some things that came up in my life that made things a lot more stressful. And so that's my biggest thing to people nowadays is like, go talk to your fellow veterans, because they're not going to judge, and if they do judge you, then you don't need that in your life. Go find the ones who won't judge you and will say, hey dude, I understand where you're coming from, let's get you some help. Have you talked to this person? Because I've met so many people that are like, I hate the VA, and then I've met people who are like, yo, the VA, this program changed my life. You
Mm-hmm.
got to find people who have those resources, who are willing to tell you about it, and then to take you there and then help you walk through it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, there's there's been so many improvements even since 2017 with the VA, and especially with women veterans. I mean, they've really stepped up their services, which is great to hear. It means we're being heard.
Yeah, we're being heard by someone, from on all fronts. And again, with women veterans, I think that's really important too, because there's a lot of services there that I think are needed, and especially when it comes to, like sexual trauma and things that are a
Hmm.
little more sensitive. Um, I think we take those things. I don't want to say take them for granted, but I think we underestimate what is really needed in those
Yeah.
areas sometimes. And um, there's talk of women's role in the military, and do they belong in combat units, and should we change standards, and all this stuff. And I think if you're going to have those conversations, you have to ask what's going to happen after service, because whatever you decide to do, you still have to take care of people afterwards. And um, I think that's really really important to not forget that it doesn't stop once you take the uniform off.
Yeah, and that's so hard for, just government to do, policy to do in general, is to um think of the aftermath. It's always a reactionary, not taking that action, pro action.
Yeah, yeah, and I think something that really gets me is the bureaucracy and the red tape. You have the private sector that is saying, hey, this is good for veterans and that's good for veterans. And we ran studies that have been good for veterans and done this. And, everything from, holistic kind of natural
Yeah.
medicines all the way up to, more of the hallucinogenics and controlled environments. And then you have the red tape of Washington, D.C. that says, yeah, we don't really want to approve that. And we understand, we hear you, and you're saying that it could help, but we need to do our own study first, and then we'll determine if we're going to do it. And we'll sit around on it for 3 or 4 years, and blah blah blah. And you're
Oh
like,
yeah. They've
you're
been
going,
waiting
yeah,
waiting for a long time for like the approval of alternative medicines, and there is a real lack of holistic care. I was talking to one of my female veteran friends, and she's about to give birth, and her birth options are so limited.
mm,
It's just a shame because you can't even choose that really life-changing experience the way you want it.
yeah. And I think the good thing that Trump did years ago was when he pushed through that executive order or law, whatever he did, that said, you can go get seen outside of the VA health system for your care if you choose so, because that's how I got my shoulder fixed. Um,
Yeah, the community care.
yeah,
I was
community
actually
care is
in
big.
Congress. That was the summer I did the internship. That
Were
was
you really?
huge. Hmm.
Yeah, it's a big deal. What was it like? What was it like doing that? I think we've talked about it before, but for maybe people who don't know, you did an internship in Congress. What was that like?
Yes, I did it. The summer of, 2019. I did a internship at the House Committee of Veterans Affairs, and it was life changing. I mean, literally set my light my fire for helping veterans. And there was the Community Care Act, and then there was the Blue Water Navy Veterans Act. So a lot of Vietnam veterans that were exposed to Agent Orange, but they were outside of the boundaries that they set. There was a lot of them that finally got care, which was, really heartbreaking to answer the calls of those veterans who had Agent Orange. Their children had spina bifida, just really impacted.
Hmm.
I think that was the biggest impact on me, was answering the phones and hearing veterans so desperate, and looking around my office and saying, there's nothing I could do except for tell you to call someone else. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah, that is tough. That is really tough. So, what are you doing? You had the Vet Chats podcast, and that was seemed to be going really, really well. You've moved on past that since. What was kind of the driving factor behind that? Did you feel like it just kind of ran its course and served its purpose, or what?
No, actually, the last episode I posted was with Brian Cranston. So it was, at its height. It was
Mm-hmm.
so much fun. But we moved to New Jersey last year, and we from Maryland. So our whole life changed. I didn't have a great place to record anymore. My husband's also working as a correction officer, so his schedule is all over the place. I don't really have a steady schedule yet with, knowing he can take care of the kids and I could record freely. So,
Yeah.
maybe it will come back. I also started working for a nonprofit, running a women's veteran group locally, which has taken up a lot of my time, but
Really?
it's just as fulfilling. Yes. Yeah,
That's
it's so
cool.
awesome.
Tell me more about that.
So we do 2 events a month in the South Jersey area. Sometimes like on Saturday, we went to a women veteran owned bake shop and we just had coffee, hung out, told stories. We have women of all different eras. It's so cool to see them all coming together and just in like a really safe environment. We all understand each other and we don't see women veteran out in public ever in our normal lives. So to bring us together and to just have that like similar ground, it's awesome. And I'm partnering with a few local nonprofits, and we're going to do some outdoor events, maybe like pheasant hunting, trying to get the women outside,
I love it.
maybe do some hikes with red, white, and blue. Um, and, just it's so fun for me because I get to collaborate with different organizations, and also, have an awesome experience for the women.
That's cool. You got to get some women into archery and have them come out to the Total Archery Challenge.
That would be cool. They would love it. I'm telling you, they were excited to get back on the range.
Really? That's cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, Total Archery Challenge is a lot of fun. It's not just a veterans event. It's open to anybody who likes archery, but um, a lot of veterans have grown into going. I got some buddies that go. Dan Horgan, who's I think he's the marketing director for the Warrior Bonfire program. Um, I saw him last year. I'm going to see him here again in Oklahoma, and archery for him as well as for me um, is that outlet, is that
Wow.
thing that you need, that because you just go outside and it's just you and the archery target and the bow.
Hmm.
There's no noise. I mean, you can play music or something like that if you want to, but there's no noise. It's a concentration. You know, you don't have to. You don't have to worry about you know being spot on. You're just trying to hit a target, and
Hmm.
it's really relaxing even for me. I don't get out there and do it as much as I should, but yeah, I
But
would
it
love to
gets
see.
you outside. It connects you with nature too. So
Hmm.
many of our things involve around being inside. So just anything that brings you out there is awesome.
Yeah, yeah, you should definitely get the ladies into archery and go to Total Archery Challenge, because it not only is it growing, but I see other organizations coming online with similar kind of programs where
Mm.
they're doing it. It's an archery challenge where you actually go out there and you shoot at targets in whatever environment it is. Like Total Archery Challenge does it in different places, like Montana at a ski resort, and they'll have targets. You'll have 25 targets over this course, and you'll walk this course, and some targets will be elevated and it'll be down a ridge and through trees, and like it's a challenge, but it's a lot
Yeah.
of fun, a lot of camaraderie, a lot of people sitting around talking. Um, everybody's a member of the Broken Arrow Club, because if you go there and you don't break some arrows, then you just, what was the point, because you're going to, and it's just a lot of fun. I went with another veteran author last year, Steve Stratton. He's a Green Beret, and we had a lot of fun. It rained the day prior to us going out on the course, so it was a little slick, but it was a blast. And I did break a few arrows. I lost a few, and but I had a blast. It was the best time.
Does it take a lot of strength, to pull it back, or is it,
It
there's
can.
there different types?
There's different types. There's different types
Okay.
of bows that you can get. That some of them make it easier. Like I fixed my shoulder, but it's still not great. So I don't pull back a very heavy bow. You can get them to
Okay.
where they're very easy to shoot. Um, so they make them for all kind of people, entry level to bodybuilders that can pull back 90 pounds and
Ooh.
are super accurate and all that. I mean, they come $500 all the way up to $2,000. So you can find something for every kind of person. I mean, they even make there's several companies that make female specific bows,
I can see
targeted
that.
just for the ladies, so that they can get into it as well. And I think
Yeah,
that's
I
pretty
think
awesome.
so. My husband's kind of into that. Like he's got a few of those. I think he even has like a kids one for one of the girls. So I've seen that.
Nice, nice.
But they haven't used it yet. Like I said, his work schedule's been crazy. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's really cool.
yeah,
I'm gonna I'm gonna look up some local programs.
yeah, definitely. So what are you doing? In the future, what is the plans for the Millennial Veterans Group? Now that you're settled in New Jersey, are you gonna pick up anything new? Well, what's the future look like for you?
I really want to have an in-person event, and just some sort of gathering, an excuse to get together. But that's going to take some planning. But besides that, just keep writing, keep sharing ideas, and keep asking questions is really my biggest thing. Yeah.
How was the before I let you go, I got to ask you this. How was the Military Influencer Conference?
It was really good. A lot of people really enjoy it. I think everyone there really has a good time. It's a great mix of people. There's like, it's like not too many just, like tech people. It's not too many entrepreneurs. It's such a mix of like nonprofits, of, corporate people there. It really is very diverse.
What was the
But
highlight of the show?
my panel, I would say, and that was, helping younger veterans through mental health and community, which is a much needed conversation. So I was grateful if we were able to talk about that. But then there's a lot of panels there that are, corporate funded. TikTok had one there. They were showing how American they were, which I thought was great propaganda.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't produce anything of substance. It's like, actually, I feel like an asshole because Viva Las Vargas was on that panel.
Oh
You
no.
did great. You did great. It's you guys all had leashes on from, I'm sure, like what you were able to say and what you couldn't say. But there was a lot of that, like corporate funded talks. There was one on suicide, and a lot of people were upset with how they handled it. It was just very corporate.
Uh, uh, yeah, yeah, that's a sensitive subject already, and then you're gonna politicize it with a corporate spin. Yeah, that's more suited for an intimate session, not sponsored by. You know.
Right. Right. But also there's the issue. Like if you're going to talk about serious things, you should have, some mental health support because we're veterans, we're going to trigger one another with, our own stories. So I get it. I get it. But
Yeah.
that's my critique.
Well, even if you don't have the intention of triggering anybody, you might change somebody's life there, an audience who was thinking about it, and
Yeah.
you said something that convinced them otherwise. You need somebody there to help them out that they can walk over to and talk to. Of course, a room full of veterans, you should be helping each other out, but um, it, you know,
Yeah.
not everybody can help everybody. But yeah, I agree. I think that's a tough one. Maybe not the best place to hold a topic like that. That's kind of difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is a tough one. And I know there's a lot of thought put behind every panel and whatnot. I don't know if I'll be back next year. I'm kind of, it took a lot out of me energy wise and preparation wise. And I'm still exhausted from it.
But for other people who are thinking about going, would you recommend going and checking it out?
I would say it was worth it. Actually, the first MIC I went to, it changed my life because that's when I met Marty Skovland of Tax and Purpose and was able to publish my article. I did two articles, and that really, I think that's really why I blew up on Instagram because of that.
Nice. Well, before I let you go, where can people go to follow you in the Millennial Veterans Group and kind of stay on board, and so they can find out when you push that volume 2 of the workbook, they can get their copy.
Yeah, so at the Millennial Veteran, it has two L's and two N's. I even spelled it wrong at first. I made a few graphics with the wrong spelling. So it's normal to get that wrong. But yeah, 2 L's, 2 N's. And then the Millennial Veterans Facebook group. Those are the two best places. And you can find the link to the current workbook if you're interested.
So there you go, folks. Jenna Carlton, look up the Millennial Veterans on Facebook, follow her on Instagram, get yourself a copy of the Veteran Workbook because it's really awesome. And then, of course, buckle down and get ready for Volume 2 or Part 2 whenever she gets around to putting that out. It's a really good tool. I think you're going to enjoy it. But, Jenna, thanks for joining me. We'll go offline here in a second and we'll chat some more, but I appreciate you joining me tonight.
Thank you so much.